Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Healing Vibrations, the show that is going to change your perspective of what illness is, to enable you to see it as a gift. There are many, my name is Gina Dallison and I am living with multiple sclerosis, and I have discovered 33 areas of our lives that we have control over. So that means there are 33 areas of your life that you can readjust in some way. And if you or anybody that you know has been diagnosed with a chronic illness, chances are your doctor would have told you that there's nothing that you can do about it. But I'm here to tell you that's not true. There are 33 different ways, and within those areas, lots of different ways that you can make some small changes that will move you forward towards the life that you want. And processes aren't hard. They just take practice, and you just got to keep going with them. Start small, start little, build the little habits, and on the little habits, start building habits up to what you actually want. But 33 areas are a lot of areas. So over the next 3 years, we will be discussing each area with a bit more focus. So every month, every moon cycle is going to have a focus. In January, we've been focusing on environment, and this is our last podcast in January. So today we'll be talking about environment in a bit more depth. I've got an amazing lady by the name of Moni Castaneda, who is a Feng Shui consultant, teacher, and author. And we go into discussion talking around how Feng Shui can start the work from the outside to change what's going inwards, and discussing how the environment, what we see outside of us, what our homes are like, what our cars like, what our workplace is like, is a direct reflection of what's going on inside. So if you've got a lot of clutter going on, then on the outside, then chances are you're not feeling calm, serene, and clear inside either. So by making some changes on the outside, you can change what's going inwards. I, as a coach, work from the inwards outwards, but I can see how the two correlates. And sometimes it's easier making practical things on the outside than it is digging deep. But Feng Shui is one of the 5 Chinese medicines branches, and so it does work on both. We have so many things in our world, so many things that we've kept, things that we haven't got rid of because for whatever reason they've got emotional ties. They all talk to us. Moni will be talking about that, how objects speak to us in some way, on the energetic way that we're being spoken to by the objects in our house. So are they saying nice things to you? Are they saying happy things? Are they sending love? Or are they grumpy and old and tired? So by looking at what's going on in your immediate area right now, whether you like it or not, will give a very good reflection about what is going on inside. And if it's not nice and clean and beautiful and happy, the good news is that there are many things that you can do to shift that about, to address the balance, to allow more happiness and fun and beauty into your life. And that's what we'll be talking about, amongst other things, in the interview, which I shall connect you with in a minute. But before we go on to that, I just wanted to talk about cluttering, because clutter is such a big thing. I have spent a lot of time over the last many years, because we're house movers. We have been moving house every couple of years, which means you generally declutter. Well, that's certainly been my experience. You don't want to be carrying around another box that you haven't actually opened from 2 years ago. So it is about realizing you don't need all that stuff. But of course, there's a lot of memories caught up in there as well. So I've still got the boxes of photographs and my boxes of journals and a few little other mementos through the years, but it's worth thinking how much you really want to take with you. And while it can be fun to look backwards, it's not necessarily, unless we really pick up the teaching from it. And that's where we can come in with coaching and Feng Shui and stuff like that, that actually looks a bit deeper at what it is that you're keeping hold of and why you're keeping hold of it. And actually, by working through some of that stuff, the environment, and again, we talk about this in the interview, the environment and your emotions and mind are sort of a triad connected together. And when we affect one, we can then affect the others and the others. So it could be emotions that you're going with in mind stuff, or it could be environment, or a mixture of the three. So it's all possible to change, and to change your outer world, so then it will change your inner world. So I will connect with you now. This was a recording we did last week with Moni Castaneda. I will be sharing the link with her her website. So you want to go along and try her free little test to see how Feng Shui can support you maybe in learning more about yourself and making some changes in your life if you're not happy with any part of them. And if you're not happy with any part of them, it is possible to do something about it. It really is. There's 33 areas. So if you would like to know more about the 33 areas, get in touch with me. I am on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram under Gina Dallison. And just get in touch and I'll tell you more about it. And I've got a little free test that you can do, go through it. I'm going to be running a workshop on it, again, another free event towards the end of February, and I'll be talking more about that. But in the meantime, let me pass you over and you can share our conversation with Moni. Bear with me 1 second while here we are. Oh no, that's me. Oh, where is it then? Okay, I'm going to stop a minute and carry on talking and just pause. Really thrilled to be joined with Moni Castaneda, who is a Feng Shui expert and facilitator. I don't know if I've called you that's the right thing, consultant. So Moni, thank you so much for joining me. And we were having some really great conversations before the recording started about the connection of our environment and our health. So maybe if you could tell our audience a bit what you were telling me about the connections and what your experience is of environment and health.
Sure. So in Feng Shui, we work with the Chinese and the Eastern 5 elements, right? And the 5 elements are related to health. So Feng Shui is actually one of the 5 branches of Chinese medicine. Another branch that you may be more familiar with is acupuncture. Another branch is Qigong. So they all use the same principles, and Feng Shui is a healing art. But as opposed to most alternative healing arts, Feng Shui works from the outside in instead of working from the inside out, right? Mm-hmm. And so in Feng Shui, there's a symbolic connection between different body parts and body systems and your health and certain systems and places in the home. And so, for example, anything that has to do with water in the home, your pipes, your faucet, that is all connected to the water element, and the water element is connected to the kidneys and the bladder and the bones and the ear, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so the electrical cables in your home, they're symbolically associated with the nerves, because they're sending our brains those electrical signals through our nerves in order to so that you can have the energy to move all the different parts of your body. And so in the same way, electricity works like that in your home, right? You have these cables going through your home. And then at the end, you can have a light turn on, a lamp, a radio, a TV, a computer. and all these new gadgets that you have, right? So now we have wireless items, but those, they still have to be charged, right? They have to be connected to the electrical supply to be charged. So there's a lot of symbolic connections like that. And there's in Feng Shui, we subdivide the home into 9 life areas. So it's like you get your floor plan, you do a tic-tac-toe, and so you assign these 9 life areas, and you end up with 9 squares or 9 rectangles in the home. And each of those life areas is associated to one of the 5 elements. So there's repetition, right? Because there's 9 life areas and 5 elements. And those elements are associated with certain organs. And so in Feng Shui, when I'm in my consultations, when I'm working with a person that is struggling with a particular type of challenge in their health, we look at what life area where that life area is located in their home. And because there's one life area that is called
so sorry, can I
family.
just, so does that mean everybody's home will have a different room as a different life area depending on the grid?
Exactly, because
Right, okay.
the layers of different homes are different, right? And so, for example, there's this life area called health, family, and community. And that one is located in the middle of the left wall of your home when you're looking at the home from the outside. So if you're standing across the street looking at your home, whatever's on the middle of that left wall, that is your health, family, and community midpoint. Now, for one home, that could be the kitchen. For another home, that could be the master bedroom.
Okay.
For another home, that could be the bathroom. So that's not good to have a bathroom, because if you think about health going down the toilet, right? But health is also expressed in the dining room, and also in any places where you eat. And so then you look at the specific organs and systems, right? And so, for example, if somebody has a heart condition and the heart works with the fire element, you look at the middle point of the back wall, because that's the one that's connected with the fire element. And the life area is called fame, reputation, and social life. But you also look at what's going on in the family room. So there's always like this unconscious location of the life area, because it's associated with the Bawa map and how you put it on the floor plan. But there's also that conscious association with a room. And so, for example, relationships are expressed in the right back corner, but they're also expressed in the master bedroom, right? And so in Feng Shui, we look at all that and we see how, so like things crisscross, it's like your home, the way your home was built and the way you apply this Bawa map, this life areas map, and the locations of the rooms, it's more like a weaving or like a quilt. So you look at what your quilt is saying. You know how some quilts tell stories, right? And so your home is like a quilt that tells a story. So in Feng Shui, we look at that quilt, we look at the story that is telling you, and we make modifications so that your home tells you a better story. There's an ancient Chinese proverb that goes like this: all the things in your home are talking to you. Make sure they have nice things to say.
Interesting you say that. I've heard of that recently, and I think because environment is my focus of the month this month, and obviously that is a lot to do with your home. And we've been looking at decluttering, and that was a way. I don't know where I got that from, but by looking at an object and what is that object saying to you, and if it's not saying very nice things, or it's moaning at you in some way, then maybe it's time to get rid. Because
right. Well, since you mentioned decluttering, right? A home that is cluttered has hundreds or even thousands of objects that are saying, do something with me, do something with me. What about me? I'm out of place. Do I really even belong here, right? And so I define clutter as decisions delayed. Every single item in your home that is causing clutter right now represents a decision you didn't make at a certain particular moment.
I say looking around my desk thinking, yes, that's
yeah. I haven't decided what to do with that piece of paper, and I haven't decided what to do with that comb, and I haven't decided where that lip balm should go, right? And so you look around, and so after a while, of not making decisions, these decisions accumulate. And I had looked up how many objects the average home has, and I thought it would be a number in the hundreds, right? but it's in the thousands. People have thousands of items in their, like 3,000 items and up. And so when you don't organize things, and when you keep things in the home that don't really serve you, you are faced with a bunch of decisions that you haven't made. And here's the thing, you sometimes you pump yourself up and you say, I'm decluttering today because I'm decluttering today. And you have to make decisions, and decisions consume calories in your brain, right? And so after 15, 20 minutes of trying to make a decision after decision after decision, you get dizzy. Your brain gets foggy. Yeah, you have decision fatigue, literally. And so, and what I do is I teach people to declutter things in batches by categories. So you don't have to make so many decisions at a time. So I teach people a number of, I was sharing with that before the interview, right? I was sharing that in the course that I have for decluttering, I teach people how to manage the space and how to manage their time. And that most of the time when people say they don't have the time for something, it's actually they have a problem with clutter. And when people say they don't have the energy for something, it's actually they have a problem with clutter.
Because you also mentioned about anxiety having a direct correlation to clutter as well, which sort of makes sense, doesn't it, when you think about it?
Sure, and there's actually studies that prove that the more clutter you have, the more anxious you tend to be. So anxiety is worsened by clutter.
And can you describe to me the way you described anxiety as well? Because I've never heard it spoken like that, and that gives a really good analogy of what it feels like, with the dart.
Oh yeah, and this is not mine. I heard it from somebody else, but they were saying that like there's always going to be problems in life, right? So pain is inevitable because there's always going to be problems. There's going to always be things that throw you off, but suffering is a choice. So pain is like that problem is like life throws you a dart, and gets lodged, and so you have to deal with that. But anxiety is like you pick up another dart and you hit yourself with it, you put it in, and so now you have two darts to deal with. Whereas if you can clear your mind and deal with your problems without anxiety, there's a lot less to deal with if you can keep that kind of calm, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that just sort of shows it in a very sort of visual way of what it's like. And it is sometimes we do make things harder for ourselves just by what we're thinking about. But I think the outside and the inside sort of reflect each other, don't they? So if I'm living in a cluttered space, then chances are that my mind's in a pretty cluttered space as well, and I haven't got much clarity. And you also mentioned before about trying to find things. So if I'm wasting a lot of time looking for things that I can't find because I haven't filed things properly, I haven't put things away.
Yeah, so a clutter, people say a clutter space, a clutter mind, but I also think it's a clutter heart. Your emotions, like, they don't work well. And so when you're living surrounded by things, you're blocking your own progress, right? And people say, some people tell me, oh, my home is cluttered, but I just love it. It doesn't bother me. And people they don't become used to clutter. They become numb to it. Right, and if you've ever experienced, like sometimes, like when your hand goes to sleep, right? If you sit on your hand, or if you sleep with your head on your hand and you wake up and your hand it has gone numb, right? When you say your hand has gone to sleep, it has gone numb. And to wake it up, it's painful. In the beginning, it's painful, but you have to go through that moment, through that period of pain, in order to regenerate and get everything flowing the way it is. Yeah, and so there's no getting used to clutter. There's no loving clutter. There's just becoming numb to it. And numbness is always a condition to deal to disease, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, numbness was one of the first symptoms that I had with my MS. So I think that sensory thing, that things aren't quite right, and your skin doesn't feel as it should. If that makes sense. Yes,
and so it's like, so in Feng Shui, we have this belief that you're a spiritual being, that the source of your essence is heaven, and you're in this reality you are inhabiting a body, and your body is the gift from the earth. So the spirit comes from heaven, and the earth is given by the earth. When your spirit goes into the body, then you become a human soul, right? And so the spiritual being, you live in your body, but as a human soul, you live in your home. And so just as it's important to keep the condition of your body, to do the best you can to keep the condition of your body in a good place regarding health, it's also as important to keep a good sense of health and healing and clarity and cleanliness and space in your home, because everything really is talking to you. And so you want to make sure you're receiving a good message from your home. Any problem you have is going to be made worse by clutter. There's never been a case where clutter improved anything, right?
Oh, it definitely doesn't, and it doesn't make you feel good when you look at it, does it? It's not the same as walking into a nice clear space where everything looks after. Because the other thing that you talked about was the triangle. So can you tell us about the
so let's talk about that, right? So Feng Shui is part of Chinese medicine, and it comes from this philosophy, right? And in this philosophy, reality has 3 levels. So the levels of reality is heaven, humankind, and earth. Heaven corresponds to thoughts and ideas, creative ideas. And earth corresponds to the physical body. And humankind corresponds to emotions, right? And so we have this reality triangle. So you can say, this part of the triangle, that is the physical world. This part of the triangle is your emotional world. And this part of the triangle is your spiritual world, or your connection with heaven. And so any problem that you have is going to have a component on each of these. There's never going to be a problem that's just physical. There's never going to be a problem that's just emotional or that's just mental. They're all interrelated. They're all interrelated. Now there can be a greater proportion, right? If somebody breaks a bone, that is mostly a physical problem. But there's also going to be the emotional problems that come with that. And the thought patterns, which also, emotions and thoughts, they have to do with habits too, right? And so if the person has had an accident and they have gotten banged up because of that accident, you have to see, were there any mental, emotional patterns that led to the accident, right? Was there like a habit of reckless behavior? That's one of the things you look at. Is the person prone to accidents, and why, right? So that some problems can have more of an emotional beginning, right? And so, for example, people, because of the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything, there's a lot of emotional strain on people, and that emotional strain results in greater stress, and that stress can create problems in the body, right? And so, and it could also be a mostly mental problem that somebody has. A person can have obsessive thoughts. But just as every problem has 3 sides, in order to solve the problem, you have to move this triangle. So if this triangle here is a problem, you need to move it over here where it's not a problem. Right. And sometimes you can pull on the physical side, or you can push with the emotional side, or glide with the spiritual side, right? But whenever you move one, because the triangle is not, it's a rigid shape, it's not, it cannot be bent. When you move one, you move the others.
So which Feng Shui is a physical part, because you talk about, of course, decluttering from the heart.
We're moving objects, right? In Feng Shui, we're moving objects. People are telling you shouldn't have that lamp there. The lamp should be on the other side, or your bed should not be with the headboard against the window. You need to turn that bed so we have a solid wall behind the bed. And that's, the condition, like having the window behind the bed physically affects your lungs, because those microcurrents behind your head. And so we move physical things in your environment in order to trigger those emotional and mental changes that you need to make in order to be healthy, happy, and successful.
So right? when you're working with people, and do you suggest that they actually physically move things around their house? Then is that what they do?
Yeah.
And do they notice? Sorry. Do they notice then that
Things
emotion?
arranged.
We keep talking over each other. Sorry, you say.
I think there's a little bit of a delay, and so while we're waiting for the one to talk, we're like, oh, okay, then I should talk. Okay, so Feng Shui is works in the physical, right? We're asking to move things. Sometimes it's okay. That mirror at the end of the hallway is making the mirror seem, the hallway seem twice as long, right? That's not good. But if you put it on the side of the hallway, then the hallway is twice as wide. That's a good thing, right? And so you move furniture, you move accessories, ornaments, decorations, you change the colors of things. But we always try to do, there's another principle of ancient Chinese medicine is less is more. So you always try to move as little as possible to produce the desired effect. So there's no overwhelm. Now, some of my clients, they frankly want to remodel. So if they want to remodel, I'm like, okay, I'll help you remodel, right? But if a client is not wanting to remodel, I'm never going to tell them you should remodel, because 99.99% of the problems we identify with Feng Shui can be resolved without having to remodel.
Right. Okay. That's quite interesting. So we were also talking about health and what health means, and you mentioned in the Chinese medicine, this is quite new to me, what component health is, or what percentage health is, because we tend to think health is all important, and
that's a really important thing to bring up, because as I had mentioned before, in Feng Shui, we assign life areas with this tic-tac-toe subdivision of the floor plan. And when we do that, we're actually identifying certain regions, right? Certain regions that are important for particular things. And this I drew a blank why I started.
We were talking about the 9 areas. You were talking about the 9 areas.
Health fits. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I feel like I see things so global. I forget what was the exact point I was trying to make.
About a lot.
Yeah. So sorry about that. And so when we apply this tic-tac-toe, right, it's actually we're assigning 9 life areas, but each of those 9 life areas has 3 aspects to it. So, for example, there's one life area that is career, life mission, and individuality, which is your ability to assert yourself. And there's another life area called health, family, and community. So health is one aspect, 1/3 of this life area. So there's 9 life areas. That means there's 27 aspects to life. And health is one of those. And the reason I mentioned it before is because some modern Feng Shui consultants in the center is the center is empty. Is the center of good fortune, and it's supposed to be empty, like the hole in the center of a wheel has to be empty for the wheel to be able to roll, right? And so I call it the center of good fortune and gratitude. But some modern consultants, they have changed that and they call it health. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Doesn't make any sense, because health is a life area that's in this other spot, or part of a life area that's in this other spot. But they say, oh, because health is everything. If you lose your health, you have nothing. You have to, you have strong health, and how are you going to live? And that's not actually true, because one thing that I have mentioned when you and I were chatting, right, was that there's plenty of people who have chronic illnesses or even terminal illnesses that still have a good number of years ahead of them where they can have a very full life, and sometimes it's decades. And so you can still have a great career, or you can have a real hobby that really fulfills your life purpose. You can have a great relationship with a spouse or partner. You can have a great family relationships. You can have involved with your community. You can have wealth. You can travel. You can have a great social life. You can express your creativity. You can have a connection with heaven. And so life is full of so many things. And so health in Feng Shui is 1/27th of those. And I know for a lot of people, this is going to be cognitive dissonance, right? Because they have been trained to believe oh, this is just health is the most important thing. And yeah, health is important. Health is crucial. That is true. But
it's
when
not the
you
be all and
lost
end all, is it?
health,
You can
yeah,
still,
and so when you lose a degree of health, or when you are given a diagnosis, your life is not over, right?
no,
You're
you just have
still
to
a
shift it
friend,
up.
you're still
Yeah.
a mom, you're still a daughter, you're still a sister, you're still a co-worker, so your life is made more than of that. And also remember that what I had told you about your spirit comes from heaven, and the body is the gift from the earth, right? And it's a precious gift. It's such a precious gift because it allows you to be here and enjoy life and learn the things that you need to learn and do for others the things you need to do for others. But if your body, if the gift from the earth malfunctions in a certain way, yes, it is your responsibility to see what's happening and to try and restore health as much as possible. But the essence of who you are is spiritual, right? You need that body to work well so that you get to express all your potential, but it's not all of you. It's not, your body is not who you are.
It's no, and I'm really glad that we've sort of ended on that, really, because that's a lot of what I talk about and teach, and just want to express to people that because you've got a diagnosis and you can't do what maybe you used to be able to do, doesn't mean that your life is over. In fact, far from it, because there's so many different elements that you could explore. And actually, by not being able to do something, then opens up doors for you to do other things, because we can't do everything. We can't do everything, can we?
And I think it's also true for everybody that as you age, there's going to be a loss of something, right? Mm-hmm. So you may not be able to run as fast as you could when you're 60 as compared to when you were 30, right? And there's going to be, like, for women, like when you go through the change of life and there's hormonal changes, your mind may not be as sharp as it was. That doesn't mean you are less smart than what you were. It means that you are living your life at a different pace, that you are not, trying to solve problems yourself, but you can actually see things with a global vision, with a global wisdom. And that appears to other people as like, she used to be a quicker wit. Now it takes her time to think through things and to make decisions, but that maybe it's not a loss, maybe it's an adaptation to a different stage in life. But you're always gonna feel, your vision, like that thing, I can't remember the name, but where the small print, like the ingredients on bottles.
Well, I swear they're getting smaller anyway, the small print on things. So.
Yeah, that's true, right? And so you have to put things at a distance. So your eyes change, or your muscles change. Everybody, every single person, as they age, they're going to experience some restriction in terms of health, right? The very fact your skin is not as elastic as it used to be, you start getting gray hair. And so if a person thinks in this way that 100% of life is their body and the optimum functioning of the body, that person is setting themselves up to be increasingly unhappy as years go by.
This is it. And it's it's the mindset, isn't it? And see and shifting things. So the whole point of the podcast that I'm doing and the interviews that I'm doing is about shifting people's perception of illness, because illness doesn't have to be a bad thing. It is a chance to look at different things. And here we are having conversations about Feng Shui, which I never thought I'd be doing. And connecting with different ideas.
And this is not to say that health is not important. It's not to say that you're not responsible for your health. And it's not to say that you shouldn't always do the best you can to keep yourself healthy, right? But you also have to put things into perspective. When something happens, when you get a diagnosis, your life isn't over. There's many things that you're going to have to change, right? Your priorities may change, the way you relate to others may change, the number of hours you work may change, but your life isn't over. And one thing that I want to mention before, but I didn't, was another thing that we observe in Feng Shui is certain features in a home make people feel more fatigued. That's one of the things we do. We look at the home to make sure that the energy and the airflow are circulating through every room in the home, so it doesn't get stagnant, because stagnation makes you feel fatigued, right? So you probably have experience, like the less active you are, the more sluggish you get, and the harder it becomes to be active. And so you need to move the energy, you need to move the chi in order to feel energized and to feel like you can go through your day without having to drag yourself and to force yourself to do things. And I was also sharing that when we had our private conversation before, I was sharing about a friend of mine who just passed on last year, and I knew for about 20 years. And when my husband was going through school, we lived in Iowa, and we lived in a trailer park. So we bought a trailer, because we had cats and we couldn't find a place to rent. That they wanted the cats declawed, and we didn't want to declaw our cats, So we bought a used mobile home in this really nice trailer park. It was some of the probably the best neighborhood I have lived in, because people were so good, so cool.
Yes, so friendly.
And she was a neighbor there, right? And she had for probably 40-45 years, maybe even longer, the doctors, they said, okay, this has got to be MS, but they could never diagnose her. But they said it was either MS or an MS related condition. And she was like the cornerstone of the neighborhood. She babysat for us. She pet sat for other neighbors. And she was just that neighbor that was always friendly and always loving. And people just come to visit her. And the teenagers and the kids in the neighborhood would come hang out with her, because she was such a joy to be around. And I can't imagine our life, during the 5 years that we lived in Iowa without her. And she was such a help. She was such a support. And obviously, she didn't have perfect health. She had trouble moving. She had trouble going places. But it was such a lesson, to see how full a person can be and how essential that person with this chronic condition can be to others.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think that's absolutely it. I think there's sometimes when I talk to people, they feel like because they're not able to do as much as they did before, or certainly not do it with as much speed and efficiency, that they feel somehow lesser or useless. And that story just goes to demonstrate that that's just not the case. We're not our bodies, are we? We're so much more than that. And if we can show that through, no matter what challenges our bodies are bringing to us, and bringing hope and inspiration, joy to other people, then that's pretty impressive.
Yep.
So
I think in society, where there's two narratives that are pushed constantly, and one of those is that you have to look a certain way to be worthy, and the other one is that you have to do to be worthy, so that your self-worth starts being measured in terms of how you look or how much you do. And I think that is one of the things that are hardest, when you feel that for whatever reason you need to slow down. Maybe it's not the slowing down that is the problem. Maybe it's the self-perception that you are less worthy as a person because you can't do as much.
Yeah, that's certainly a good place to end, I think, because that's you've really given us something to think about. Because certainly one of my things that, if my MS is teaching me anything, it's like I need to slow down, and I'm not very good at slowing down. So thanks for that, and thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom and insights with your information about the Chinese medicine and all the different areas of our life, and how there's so much more to it than just one aspect. And if people wanted to learn more about what you do and get involved in, and maybe work with you in some way, how can they get hold of you?
So I have a website, and it's 9stepstofengshui.com. And I know some people don't know how to spell Feng Shui. So I also have spacearrangement.com that forwards to my 9stepstofengshui.com website. So if you go to spacearrangement.com, you'll go to my website. There you can learn about the courses that I teach, the consultations that I offer, books that I have written.
Wow,
And so I also have a Facebook group. If you join my mailing list, there's when you go to the website, my freebie is you can download a free life areas test environment that is actually going to show you how your life rolls. Like, remember I was talking about the different life areas and the aspects of the life area. So that's going to show you how you're doing. It's a really awesome self-assessment.
Oh, cool.
And
I
so
shall
if
go
you
and
do
have a
that,
go.
you will get an email with an invitation also to join my Facebook group, where it's the free Facebook group. It's private, and it's free, and you can learn a lot there. You can get access to articles and Q&A, and we do some really fun, easy to do challenges on how to improve different spaces in the home.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So I will share the links below when we
Awesome.
go on Facebook, and when and thank you so much for sharing your stuff with me. It's just been a joy. It's just been a joy meeting you. Thank you.
Same here.
So there we are. And yeah, she did give me some good things to think about. And I have just signed up for her little freebie. I haven't done it yet, so I can't tell you what that's like. But these days, I'm always open to seeing another point of view, because who knows? Who knows that by moving a plant from one corner to another corner can make a difference to your energy? Until we try it, we don't. So I think this whole personal development journey, and certainly the journey that I'm coming on with my healing, is really one of opening your mind. Because next month, or next week, which is next month, we're heading towards February at a rate of knots, we're going to be looking at our beliefs, and what we believe around things very much keeps the mind closed. So if you've ever come out with a phrase like, oh, I'm never going to do that, or I could never do that, then that is your belief, because anybody can actually do anything. It's our perception on what we can. There's a lovely quote by Henry Ford: if you think that you can, or you think that you can't, you are right. And it's true. It's true. So our beliefs are a massive part of how we behave. In fact, I've heard recently that actually 95% of how we live our life is run on the subconscious, and the subconscious is created by your beliefs and values. So this is what we're going to be going into in a bit more detail, and next week on the next podcast. It is a fascinating subject, and once you start diving down and shining a light on your beliefs, because the beliefs do run on the subconscious. We believe certain things, we don't question it. We picked it up from maybe a parent or a school or a politician or a teacher. Somebody in our environment gave us this belief, and it never occurred to us. I don't know if it sounds a bit off. Excuse me, it's been a bit echoey.
If you don't look at your beliefs, then the subconscious keeps running the show. And the only way that you can change them is by recognizing that that's what they are, they're a belief. So we're going to be talking over the next few weeks how to shine a light on your beliefs, how to use that knowledge of what you've discovered to inquire and get curious as to whether that belief is actually really helpful for you to move forward. So for example, if I believed that I couldn't, I had an incurable disease, then I probably wouldn't be doing this. But I've chosen, and I've actively chosen a belief and thought, no, that belief does not make me feel good. I don't want to think I've got an incurable disease that's going to get worse and there's nothing that I can do about it. It's not that. I don't want that belief. That just makes me feel rubbish. Makes me not want to even get out of bed in the morning. So I have recognized that belief. I've pulled it out and I've tossed it away. Every now and again it comes back and says, are you sure you don't want to believe me? And I say, no, I do not want to believe you. I want to believe that we all have the power to heal ourselves. And that keeps me going every single day. That gets me up. That makes me do things that I'm nervous about doing. So this podcast is a great example of that, of just putting yourself out there and having a go, because I believe that it's worthwhile. I believe that the stuff that I'm learning about, that other people can benefit from. Well, I know that it's beyond belief. I know it's the stuff that I'm learning around your beliefs and around your mindset and around all the different areas of your life that you do have control over. You know, I believe that you have the power to change them. And what we do in Healing Vibrations is my small at the moment paid for group. So if you want to come and learn a bit more, come along to the free Facebook group, Managing MS Naturally. And I share some additional bits in there. We do a Monday's mindful moments, and just to get a little bit more mindful, and share some weekly things to keep our vibrations high. But then if you want to take it a bit more seriously, and you would like some support with changing or making or breaking habits that are going to serve you better, if you want to have some support in looking at all the different areas of your life with a bit more hand-holding, a bit more accountability, because nothing changes till we do. Don't know where that quote came from, but it just felt right. And we can change. All of us can change, but it's taking the little tiny steps consistently and becoming more mindful in our actions. So actually, for a while, our subconscious isn't running the show. We bring the subconscious beliefs up to air, and then is that something that I want to be running my show on or not? So it's the reprogramming. You might have heard before from other people talk about reprogramming. That's what we're going to be looking at when we go into beliefs and what that is. So that's next week. I hope you've enjoyed the focus on environment. My apologies for not being as planned and organized as I would like, but I am working towards that. So this time next year, I hope to be able to give you a year long, or at least a 6-month or a 3-month long schedule of what's going on. At the moment, I'm still chasing my tail a little bit and following it on, but it just feels right. I feel like these 33 areas are all worth focusing on in a bit more depth. So if you've not listened back to certainly the last 2 podcasts, 2 and 3 was all about environment. Podcast 1 tells a little bit more about my story and why I'm coming here. So if you're interested in that, listen into podcast 1. In the meantime, if you want to know more about the 33 areas and would like to see what Healing Vibrations is, and I'll talk about that more, it's just a small low-cost paid-for group that keeps people accountable and supports them a little bit more in their journey if they want a bit more help. Of course, as a coach, I also do one-to-one coaching, which supports you on a much deeper level, and we can use the Get Honest audit, the 33 areas self-audit, to assess where you are right now. It's a diagnostic tool. You'll see where you're doing well in life, and then you'll also see where not so much. And that's your low-hanging fruit. That's things that you can make some little changes that will likely to make a big difference going forward. So if you're interested in that, give me a shout. I'm on Gina Dallison. I'm on all the social media platforms. Okay, well, we have about 7 minutes now. So I would like to invite you to join me on a nice calming meditation. Because meditation through all the areas of your life helps. And what is meditation? People have a lot of resistance quite often about meditating. And if you're not already practicing it regularly, then chances are you've got some resistance. But you might find that you do meditation in other forms of life, maybe when you're walking, when you're gardening, when you're fishing, when you're doing art, even when you're washing up or cleaning, can be quite a mindful exercise. So what we talk about a lot in healing vibrations and managing MS naturally is that making mindfulness more of a practice in everything we do. So we don't have to zone out for 3 hours in order to reset. We're doing it as we move along. We're resetting. So I invite you to just sit for 5 minutes, and wherever you are, if you're able to sit, sit, or lie down if that's more comfortable, and get yourself comfortable on your chair, and just feel support. Just notice how the back of the chair feels, and how the seat feels, and how your feet feel on the ground. Notice all the touch points. Now take a nice big deep breath in. And as you're breathing in, you're filling your lungs. Just notice how the body is changing shape. You might be sitting a bit taller. And you've filled your breath as much as you can fill it out. Hold it for a second, and then gently and slowly release. I'll just leave you some space now to do that exercise 3 or 4 times. Get present with everything that's going on in your body, your senses. There's a lot about what's happened to move. Notice what you notice. Take another big deep breath in. Really try and expand your ribs. Back your shoulders. Sit up a bit taller. Stretch out. And slowly allow your arms to come back down to the ground. A simple exercise like that you can just incorporate into your day. Maybe as you're waiting for the emails to load, or waiting for the kettle to boil, or at a bus stop or in a queue. Just do a couple of big deep breaths. It will take less than a minute, but really help to calm the central nervous system. And if we can come from a place of calm and connection with ourselves, then that makes the decision making much easier. Yeah, so if we can keep ourselves calm and collected and in touch with ourselves, then making decisions becomes easier. And when we make more decisions about even about the little things, or especially around the little things, it improves our environment. We haven't got the clutter anymore. Do share with me any little gems that you thought you liked about this podcast, and a thing that you didn't like or didn't agree with, ideas for improvements or guests that I could have on. So I haven't come up with my guests for next week or next few weeks, but if you know anybody that knows about beliefs, then point them in my direction and I will gladly interview them for the show. And in the meantime, if you know anybody else that is living with what they thought was a lifelong illness, then invite them over to come and see if they can shift their perspective a little bit in relation to illness and what it means. What happens if it is a gift and it's been brought to us to show us that we need to do things a little bit differently? Our job is to work out which things we need to do and in what order. And the challenges with that is that we're all different. Everybody, although we've got the same basic anatomy, we are all totally different. On that, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and week, and I will look forward to seeing you next Thursday for more healing vibrations.